Hi folks, welcome to Community Pulse. I'm your host, Brian Lamore. On today's show, we'll be talking about the Montana Historical Society. And in particular, we'll be talking about how they are helping to preserve, promote, and digitize some very important films that have been produced about Montana. It's very interesting stuff. We have a wonderful history and we're preserving it for generations beyond us. Today we have some wonderful guests, of course. We have on my left Molly Krukenberg. You're a research center manager with the Montana Historical Society. We have Bob Henkel. You're a film producer here in Helena. And Jim Graff, you're a film producer in Billings. Welcome to the show, all of you.
Good to be here.
Great. And Molly, let's start with you. You're a research center manager. Could you explain to us what this research center does and how it helps complement the mission of the Montana Historical Society?
Absolutely. So the mission of the Montana Historical Society is to promote an understanding and appreciation of Montana's culture and history, kind of past, present, and future. As part of that, the Research Center collects, preserves, and provides access to the materials that document and help us study Montana's history. Our collections are kind of wide and vast and broad and deep. We have archival materials, so paper materials, records of state government and businesses from around the state. We have oral histories. We have digital collections. We have publications, newspapers, maps, photographs, and of course what we're talking about today, films.
Films, and you're looking for more of those resources too. If you
All
have
the
something
time.
that's very fascinating, you would love to see it, maybe access it and add it to the collection.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're always looking for materials that help document the story of Montana's history, and are always looking for those new materials to add that new story to our history and adding those to the Research Center collections.
Oh, that's great. It must be a huge collection. Do you have enough room to keep it all in one spot?
You know, we don't have room to keep it all in one spot. We are literally on 3 out of 4 of the floors at the Historical Society's building. We do have some off-site storage as well, but all secure storage in environmentally controlled areas so that we do preserve those collections for future generations.
Well, you know, in accessing and preserving these collections, I mean, it's so very important, but then people want access to them. They would like to know what's there, and you really encourage individuals' access, right? I mean, for the people that are viewing right now, they're saying, well, maybe I have a relative that was in such and such a county so long ago. You make information available to individuals.
That's exactly what we do, is to make information available. We are all about access. We're definitely about preservation, but preservation doesn't make sense if we're not letting people access those collections. So the Research Center has a public reference room that's open Tuesday through Saturday, and anyone from the public can come use the reference room during those hours. And we have reference staff who are there and dedicated to helping people find the information that they're looking for.
And I know in the past I've gone in there and you have like microfiche of basically almost every newspaper, old newspaper that's been there. And you can access those things. You can get a little bit of help because you need to start out, like, where do I even start? And you're there to help the individuals, right?
Definitely, definitely. We have between 2 and 3 staff there all the time to help individuals. We do have 95% of the newspapers that have ever been published in the state on microfilm. Some of those are also available online as well, so you can do some searching of historic newspapers there. But we have staff there that's their job, is to help people find their story in Montana's history and find out any information that they need to know.
Well, and you know, you collect photographs too, and that's got to be fascinating. But how does one even start to say, I'm interested in a photograph from late 1800s? I mean, you must have it organized so that an individual or a staff person can access that.
Definitely. So we have more than 500,000 historic photographs from Montana, covering from the earliest photographs taken in the state in the 1860s to current. We're collecting digital as well. So we have a kind of, again, that broad and wide array of collections, but we do catalog our collections. We have an online catalog. We cooperate with the State Library through the Montana Shared Catalog. So if you go to our website and go to the Research Center, there's a nice easy button that says search our catalog. So you can start a search there for our photographs, but we also have, as I said, reference staff who specialize in helping people. So if you come in and visit us, you can look at the photographs themselves, see what we have. Photographs do have their own unique challenges because they're visual, so they're harder to describe, to figure out what people might be looking for. But we do that. We do catalog those, and so they are we are able to find and retrieve what people want to see.
Well, now you're a research center manager, and it's available to the public, but it's also available to your internal staff too. How do they access your information, and then how do they kind of like do a collection or formally put this information out?
So our staff, we have archivists and librarians on staff, and so they catalog the collection. They'll look at every piece of paper, every photograph, every film that we have, and describe it using standards set by the Library of Congress or other national organizations, and use kind of those keywords, similar to what you might go to a public library and search their catalog to find a book that you might want to read or take a look at. We use similar types of systems to describe our materials as well. And then other folks, historians at the Historical Society, our museum staff, our education staff, all use the research center collections to develop the materials that they're producing, like our quarterly journal, Montana, the Magazine of Western History. So those folks as well use our materials to write the stories about Montana history.
Yeah, and I know I recently purchased the Charlie Russell's information. You've got a great collection of Charlie Russell's letters, art, sculptures, but sometimes I can't read his handwriting on some of the things. I can go and actually see them. So the book helps define that, but puts together the history. But the Historical Society generated that book, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a really fantastic publications department at the Historical Society. And so two of our staff members, Jennifer Bottomley O'Looney and Kirby Lambert, actually wrote the text of that Charlie Russell book using materials from the Research Center and then basing it off of all of that fabulous artwork and sculpture and the letters and things that are in the collection to create this great story of Charlie Russell and his life in Montana. And then our publication department makes that available, publishes it, so that everyone can read about it and find that information.
Yeah, I know the magazine you have, Montana Magazine of Western History, is just fascinating. It comes out 4 times a year and goes into such great detail. I mean, a professor would probably put this together as a professional research project, and you can read it and go, gee whiz, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And how do people access the Montana Magazine of Western History?
So you can subscribe. If you go to our website, you can go under publications and can subscribe that way. And so you can subscribe just to the journal there. Lots of public libraries around the state have our magazine in their collections as well, usually in the colleges and universities too. But you can also become a member of the Montana Historical Society, and part of the membership benefit is a subscription to Montana, the Magazine of Western History.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, it is.
But now, Molly, we've been talking about, they'll say some artifacts they have, letters. We talk about pictures that they have. But a project you've done is digitizing and preserving some important films that have been done. Tell us, how do you establish what is an important film, and then how do you preserve it and make sure it happens?
Sure. So films are really a unique way to look at history. They kind of document different aspects of Montana history than, say, even a still photograph will or a letter will. It documents kind of the visual, the audio, all at the same time. And so when we look at films to add to our collection, we look for a film that has some good content to it, a good story behind it as adding to the story of Montana history. So the films that Bob and Jim did are a great example of what we have in our collection and what we like to add to it. But we also have home movies. For example, one film that we worked with was of the construction of the Fort Peck Dam that was a home movie, but really great content. So films that document important aspects of Montana history, and they can be anything from an amateur home movie to a professional production.
Professional production. And Bob, you've been involved in filmmaking, and you produced a number of these films that we'll be talking about that have been digitized and preserved. How did you first get into, I guess, a historical aspect of Montana?
Well, not only historical, but travel. And I think it started out when Jim and I were working in handling the advertising and publicity for Yellowstone National Park. And Jim, you might just mention how we ended up into the movie business.
Well, it was kind of a segue. We produced a lot of commercials for a lot of clients, and we had all the equipment. We had cameras, we had the lights and all that, and we liked what we did. And so we decided to move ahead with longer pieces of historical fact on film, and that's not easy to do because you can bore people to death if it isn't done right. And anyway, we decided that just to move ahead with some various subject matter, and we happened to be with the Old West Trail Foundation, and that was 5 states, Bob? Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. And through their funding and their cooperation and their encouragement, we produced probably, about 15 titles?
All total, yes.
Over, I hate to say this, but 40 years.
Yeah.
So the main thing and the curious thing is we haven't lost a shirt on it. We didn't make millions of dollars, but we didn't lose a shirt. And we turned out a lot of good documentaries. Molly, they're historical, so they stand the test of time. And this bronze here is kind of an example of, I guess, how good we are. That's a top award from the National Cowboy Hall of Fame down in Oklahoma City, and I went down there to receive it, and I was surrounded by movie stars, Roy Rogers, and Joe McRae, and I don't know who else. And everybody that sat at my banquet table had tuxedos. So it was quite an experience. But what we've turned out, and Bob will cover a lot of the other details here, but it was significant pieces of work, and we enjoyed doing it while we were at it. And I moved down to Billings, so our cooperation is kind of long distance now, but I hope Bob continues with the distribution with Molly and the State Historical Library. But we've just, I think, done a credible job.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that took place, we originally worked for Yellowstone Park Company, Sage Advertising, Jim and I, and we did several award-winning films for them. And then we ended up in 1969 getting the state travel account. So that opened the door for the next 10 years to, we did national advertising, the map and brochures for the state of Montana. And that opened the door for us to make all kinds of films that we donated to the Historical Society. And this will give you an idea. The films come, half-hour films come in reels like this, and the Historical Society digitizes it because Ektachrome film fades over 50 years, and this is 40 years ago. The state sends it to a processor back east, and they digitize it, color correct it scene to scene, and then they make CDs and hard drives, which can be made available to the public, and you could buy all of these films. And these are the films that we donated, and each one of these to here have been already digitized. And it's a pretty expensive
Open
project.
up, I take that and hold it up for the camera. Here we go. So,
Okay.
hold it here for you. So you got an interesting, you got 5 films that have been digitized, and you have another one that is going to be done next year. You had, let's see, Chet Huntley has narrated a number of them, John McIntyre, Chet Huntley, and Henry Fonda did some too.
Yeah.
And so these are available. How did you select these, or how were these selected in order to be preserved?
Well, that's another story. Molly just touched on the importance of these films as being a kind of a complete story at a time, going back 40, 50 years. But looking at these one by, in 1970, we filmed Montana Land of the Big Sky, and narrated by Chet Huntley. And all of these are seen regularly on Helena Civic Television every week. All of these that we have donated 4 of them so far. And in the case of the one that's coming out next month, which Jim will talk about, that'll be used several times a week. But all of these others are something that anybody can see on Helena Civic Television.
And apparently they've been, over the years, about 100 million people have watched them.
Well, about 100 million people totally have watched them. And this is just going through each one. Here's the first one we did for the state of Montana, 1970. 72, Escape to Montana's Glacier Park, narrated by Chet Huntley. And Jim, you might just mention what happened regarding the Red Sunday and how it was used by the Park Service.
Red Sunday was a production that we spent quite a bit of prep time on, and it came out in 1976, which is the bicentennial year for USA, and I worked directly with John Warner in helping to get the situation settled down there in Crow Country around Billings, so that there would be no uprising or anything embarrassing nationally on that subject matter of it just was kind of ticklish, and we got it all done. And Red Sunday has gone far beyond our expectations in viewership, and it's probably, I would say, one of the best jobs that we've ever done. It was probably one of the most difficult ones. The one coming out that Bob mentioned to you was Old West Trail, Your Land and Mine, and that's being reworked now, and that has Henry Fonda as narrator, and it also has original music score, which are very unusual for those types of presentations. The opening scene is an eye catcher. It's a whole raft full of tourists, scared spitless, coming down the rapids in the Snake River at the Grand Teton area. The scene, the movie has a great historical value in it. It's got the best close-ups of the 5 presidents of the Mount Rushmore, and on top of the dramatic cinematography on those, it is credible, because we've got the old footage of Gutzon Borglum on sculpting that, and that's historical. But that's just a part of it. And I think that, Bob, when does that come out?
The tail end of October, and it'll be Jim Graff and I will be doing an introduction on it.
That's great.
Tomorrow.
Okay. And you were going to talk about the Old Glory program that we have?
Yes, I thought I'd take an opportunity to tail end this program, if you don't mind. As long as I'm here, I'm the founder and manager of the Old Glory Landmark, and we have a program going on now for veterans, for Veterans Day. If you're interested in having a brick for a veteran, past or living, you could pick these up at the. You could pick that up at the monument, and we have an ad running in Sunday's paper, which that's the picture of the little flyer that you could pick up at the monument.
Okay, that's great. And then, Jim, you had something about the Billings Rotary history book that you put together?
Well, I'm embarrassed because I left it in the car,
That's okay.
but it's a 100-page history of Billings Rotary Club. And what's unique about our club is that it is probably the second club founded in Montana. Butte was the first, and I believe that Billings was second, clear back in 1916. So we had our centennial year, and to celebrate our centennial year, we produced a durable 100-page hardbound cover book, and I'm going to give it to Molly, your director.
Great.
She gets it.
He would get it directly today, but I left it in the car. But anyway, he will have it in the mail. But it's going to be a prize winner. Thank you.
That's great. And Molly, let's kind of anchor out with you. We've drawn to a close on the show. Can you tell us more about your research capabilities of the Historical Society and how you make that available to everybody in the world, actually?
Sure. So as I said before, the Research Center is here to make our collections accessible to the public. That's our task, that's our job, is to help people learn about Montana's history and heritage and culture. We're open Tuesday to Saturday. There's staff there to help you find any information you want, from your family history to your student's school project to your dissertation or legal research. We are here to help you find that history and that story.
And it's available through the internet, a lot of it too.
It
but
is.
You would love to talk to people if they want to call in.
We do. We do love to talk to people. You can email us, you can come visit us, you can call us. You can contact us in any number of ways.
And you can donate information also. That's very important.
Absolutely.
We're still collecting history.
We are, most definitely.
Well, thank you all for all that you do. I mean, it's a big job, a lot of volunteer and issues, and you make it look easy, and that's wonderful. So thanks for what you do. And for our viewers, again, you know, what we're talking about today is that there's a variety of films. They have 5 that are completed about the history of Montana. They'll be available through the Montana Historical Society. A lot of work has gone in to take these films, to digitize them, and to make them available, and to both preserve them for the future, too. And there's a 5th film that's going to be coming up that they'll be doing this year. They've been airing on HCTV, and they're fascinating videos or films. Over 100 million people have seen them. They're being preserved for the future. For Community Pulse, I'm Brian Lamore. Thank you for joining us.